Look, like I said, very hard. You've only got to walk around the building here and up at NDC, and I see smart, funny, happy people. I don't see women and men. I just see employees, and I see people that jet with families, and I see lots of millennials, of course. It made me feel old, but generally speaking, I don't wear that lens, so it's hard to tell for me to say whether we have a gender bias here. In fact, I probably think that would say we don't. In fact, I know statistically what the answer is to your question, but I don't need to say that here. But it's, I don't know, maybe I'm a little bit blasé, some people might say, because if I don't know, how do I know whether I have a problem or not? But I, from my experience in life and at work, have a pretty good sense of people and of levels of engagement and also the layout. So I'm only going to walk around the floors, which I try and do as much as I can to know that we're looking okay.
I think we are, and the audience will agree that we are. We are. We have a robust program. The fact that we do have the women's network and we have forums like this, that we have the diversity crew as well.
Our Pride friends, Friends of Pride.
Through our abilities network, and yeah. So I guess the only thing we can do or expect more and hope to get more is the support of the continuing support of the employees.
It's interesting, sorry to labour the point, but I don't know if anybody's had a chance to, and probably not, had a chance to look at the Royal Commission that's going on in Australia right now. And I've explained the Royal Commission a couple of times in town halls and other venues. The linkage with that that I want to make is that there's some very senior executives are being grilled, absolutely grilled by the Commission. Very senior lawyers are grilling employees, senior like myself, about their governance, their relationships with third parties, how they manage their business, how they know that they're on top of their business. And the comment I made just now about statistics, unless I went around and measured how many women we have in the organisation and how many men, could I hand on heart say that we have a well-balanced, diverse and inclusive organisation? I probably wouldn't be able to answer that question at the Royal Commission today. And that would be seen as a bad thing, by the way. So maybe there's a call to action to do that. I don't know, just food for thought.
Good point, Stephen. Hopefully we can get through these sessions that, in our own little way, that we support that and change and address the concerns around biases, may it be gender, may it be preference, may it be what you can bring forth to the table or not.
Yeah, sorry to hog the airtime, but I just want to quote an example. I attended a telepresence workshop yesterday. Telepresence is a TV viewing meeting device that we have here, with some people in Bangalore yesterday. And it was basically 3 large leadership teams. And there would have been 20 people in the room. Marjo was with me and Emma and a few people in Manila. But on the telepresence in India was a room with about 20 odd managers. And I led the conversation. The subject matter doesn't matter, but we kind of got to the end of the discussion. We wrapped up, and I turned to Marjo and I said, "Did you notice anything about our audience today?" And Marjo scratched her head and looked at me. But I pointed out, I said to her, "Did you notice the gender diversity?" And out of the 20, 18 were guys, and there were 2 girls. And that was that stuck out so much to me, because here, whenever I attend meetings and workshops and stuff, it's like almost the opposite, but there's a good mix, right? You go to meetings and stuff, and there's a really good mix. But there, I was absolutely blown away by what I saw, and I will raise that with Panky Jam when I next speak to her. And it might have been a really unfortunate coincidence, but for it to catch my eye means something. Yeah, so, I guess I'm looking out for that kind of stuff.
So, thank you. Before we head into the Q&A, I just have one question for you, just to wrap up the event, the forum. What advice would you impart to our audience right now on, for Jen, how to be an all-star dad and a 50-50 partner, or Steve as, from a workplace setting as a workplace MVP, and for 10, for women who would want to, get into sports, not primarily CrossFit, and into an industry that's male-dominated. What's that one tip that you can give them? For Steve and Jet, just to add maybe a tip for the guys, if they would want to support diversity, how can they do that in the context of family and in the context of workplace? So yes, let's start off with Jet.
Okay. You did give me time to think there, but I'll do my best. And there's one
I was
tip.
trying to expound my question.
No worries, no worries.
I was, yeah.
Thanks a lot. Okay, Fred, that was a tough one. At home, I think at home, whether it be at home or at the workplace, I'd like to bank on what Steve mentioned earlier in his opening statement, where I think it also boils down to our upbringing, the values that are embodied at home, how we were brought up by our parents, would also be the same way we'd be, or probably an enhancement of how we live our lives and how we pass it on to our next generation, or how we build and strengthen. I'm not even going to say gender diversity, but the equality as to one's outlook in life. If you ask me personally, I don't see any issues. I don't see any disparities or, I don't know, any imbalance. If you ask me, and in the next couple of years, when our women in management hit 90%, that's when I'd raise my hand and say, I think we have an issue. I think we need to set up an ANZ male network or something. You get what I'm saying? But in reality, no. I think in Steve's other example, where how, in a different country, such as, for example, in Bengaluru or in India in particular, where, they had maybe a more male-dominant management team. Who knows? Maybe not. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But also, you look at the difference as well as to how we're progressing, let's say here in the Philippines versus there, in terms of the way we look at things. The moment we realize that we don't look at things or anyone with any biases, any type of prejudice or preferences, then that's the time wherein we can say that, hey, we're actually progressing and moving forward. If there were tips I could share, sorry, I wasn't even getting started. Okay, I missed hosting all of a sudden, sorry. Yeah, at home and in the workplace, this is what I wanted to share really. I'd probably sum it up in 3 C's, and I'm making it up as I go. Number one, it's all about communication. Keeping that, Keeping that open line of communication at home is very critical, especially in our case, wherein my wife's gone, she's out London to visit the Queen, God knows where she goes. Sometimes I fail to ask, and I don't even know when she's coming back. So it's just me and my daughter, and I know we got tons of homework to do. I need to go home. On my way home, I start calling my nanny and say, do we have food? Do we have rice? Is there dinner? Is there baon for tomorrow? Do I need to buy it? Right? So there's that open line of communication that needs to be there, transparent, and it's open. That works at home and in the workplace. Second is, it's about commitment. It's commitment to each other, whether it be commitment to your partner, to your daughter, to your son, to your office mate, to your peer. It's that commitment, which leads us really to respect. It boils down to that, respecting one another. you're committed to actually doing your best and helping each other out. And it's a two-way street. You know, so I mentioned commitment. I said 3. Did I say 3 or 2? I said 3. I'm giving it a hard time. Okay. So there's so I mentioned their communication, commitment. Okay, I'm making up my third C right now.
I'm gonna give you courage.
Courage. Ultimately, courage to speak up. Speak up when, you know, people around you are giving you a hard time, or you feel that there is oppression in the air. It's about courage. No, it's seriously, it's courage for you to stand up. Opportunities knock but once, sometimes twice, and if we miss it, you know, it's probably our loss. But never should you feel that just because that person is a guy who's good looking or what have you, more masculine than you, or a woman more stronger than you or whatnot. No, it all boils down to you as an individual as well. For you to be that person, to have that courage and focus on change and really be committed to everything that you do. Communication at work happens, but it starts from you. So that's what I want to share. And just to top it all off, there was a quote I read where it said, women will never reach that equality or will never be equal at home until men are equal in it. So again, women will never be equal outside. What's that? Women will never be equal outside home until men are equal in it. Right. So with that, you know, I thank you all. Pass it on to Steve. Sorry about all the airtime.
Thanks, Jet.
I
I agree with everything he said. Just some closing thoughts for me, and I agree seriously with a number of things that you mentioned. The big one is the respect thing, respect for each other. But again, I'll keep saying the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's male, female respect or respect for peers, whoever you are. That's important. And that's ingrained in values, which I mentioned before. We have to remember that not everybody's like us. I think that's the challenge. And at ANZ, and I'll give you the party line right now, which is ANZ's all about diversity and inclusion, and we promote it heavily. We have programs around it. We've developed networks and all those good things. But the truth is, not everybody may believe the way we think we should believe, and may have different values. And certainly, you know, as we hire new people, we don't do a values test. We kind of get an indication when we sit them down for an interview, but for sure we don't know. But what happens, and again from my experience in large organizations, people with conflicting values very soon feel very isolated. So for example, and Shane's promoting new ways of working and a completely different cultural shift around who we are and what we can contribute, and forget about your grade. You know, and I've said this a number of times, forget the fact that you have a boss or whatever it is. It's a lot more what you can bring to the table that's important now under our new culture. So the interview process where we're bringing in people, it's a lot more about how versatile you'll be and how comfortable you can be being uncomfortable and those things, and a lot less scrutiny, I guess, on your beliefs around disparities between men and women, or you know, our pride friends, or any of that stuff. So there will be people slipping through the cracks, but they will stick out very quickly and feel uncomfortable. Either uncomfortable with the fact that they want to be hierarchical and they like command and control, and I will break that if I see that here in the Manila Service Centre, and they'll be out the door very quickly. Either they'll walk out the door because they're feeling uncomfortable because that's not how we operate, or we'll show them the door for sure. And likewise, you know, we have people that come in who may have different values around gender equality and so on and so forth. Not everybody in the Manila Service Centre has these beliefs. And I'm sure of it. You know, when you have nearly 3,000 people, you're bound to have people that go home and have some disparaging things to say about our Pride colleagues, and about how many women bosses they've had and whatever else. And we've got to face that. But the power that we have is the power in numbers. And there are, in my belief, far more people like the audience here today and others around the Service Centre who can squeeze that stuff out. And if that's what they want to believe, and they're entitled to it, by the way, just as much as you are entitled to your religious beliefs, we may see it as wrong, but they may see it as right. And there's no place for that at ANZ, and there's definitely no place for that in most organisations around Manila, so that's for sure. So we can be pretty safe thinking that the environment will bring that out. But I think we've got to recognise that if you're on the MRT or you're on a bus or whatever, that you may find some people who are vulgar, disparaging, and whatever, and you just got to stand your ground. And you don't need Kristen's strength and skills to vote and make a difference. You can stay silent, ignore, and do those things, and they soon go away pretty quickly. Yeah, or stand up for yourself if you want.
Regardless whether you're male or female, it all boils down to commitment that you do for your goals, your passion, and the work that you put into it. So, you would probably have advantage at times, but if you don't put in extra time and effort, you'd still not end up being successful.
Very well said. Thank you. Panelists, now we open the floor to questions.
Yep. Questions, guys? I know you're all engaged with their insights, but I know you have a lot in mind. Come on.
Don't be shy. Okay, here we go.
My question goes out to everyone, so anyone can answer. And before I ask the question, I just want to establish this. I'm an all-out supporter of women equality, gender parity and all. Ever since I was a kid, when I grew up, I've always looked at women, not just women, everyone, any individual as an equal. They have their own strengths and weaknesses, as do I. So my question is about, I'm just getting a bit, I see a conflict between what we're trying to, regarding this advocacy against the meaning of equality, especially in the workplace where, as previously mentioned, there is a, what do you call it, a requirement for equal number of, let's say, women and men in senior management roles, even in interviewing for job applications. I mean, what's the point in maintaining the balance if everyone is treated as equal? I'm just thinking it may also have something to do with equal opportunity. Does that mean that if we have 10 candidates or applicants only, and we already have, let's say, more male in a senior role, and then we have less women apply for the role, are we supposed to force and find female candidate, or even vice versa? Why do you even have to balance when we treat each other as equal? My point is that aren't we supposed to look at the skill, merit, whatnot that's needed by the role, or rather than gender?
Recruitment team? No, kidding. Maybe that's a question for...
Sure. As I'm the MVP, I don't know how I got that most valuable player title. MVP of
And I'll tell you the story why I call you the workplace MVP.
Oh, okay.
I'm the dad. I'm the dad.
Okay. Okay, I'm the MVP. I think that's a great question, and I've always been particularly transparent. I'm going to be super transparent now. There was a time, for those who were around, and most of you looking in the room were here 2 or 3 years ago, when there was a really big push for women in management, and the push became so hard from the top, and it got to a point where I disagreed with the way it was being handled. And some of you will know, mainly because we've got some of our resourcing T&C people here, but there was a push to say, have a look at all the women in grades below management, just below the grade of management, and see whether they're ready for succession and ready to move up, and we will promote them overnight. Most people remember that. I completely and utterly disagree with that. I'll say that openly now. He is recording this. Do not share it with Shane. But I did make the phone call to Joe Campbell at the time to say, what are we doing? We've completely lost perspective a little bit on that, because it should be about the right candidate.